17. Okay, we're on page 17. If I can just ask at the end, because I'm on my phone, if someone is able to share the Tehillim, then that would be fantastic. I don't know who is, if anyone's got the facility to be able to do that at the end, then that would be fantastic. Okay, so last week we did the introduction, essentially, where we spoke about what the purpose is. The purpose of the book is, which is to give us a sort of structure, which is a structure within Torah that we can apply to all different areas and all different parts of our life. So chapter 1 is really a key part of the book. It still is a little bit theoretical, so just hang on, just stay with us. But it will be something which you're going to see is put a pan out into very, very practical, as it's called Living Inspired. So chapter 1 on page 17.
Becomes clear when you get to the end.
It comes clear when you get to the end, and then you go back to the beginning. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Chapter 1, higher pattern. According to our received tradition, the world is built on a pattern which permeates its every detail. Okay, so the world, really, this comes from everything in the world comes from Hashem, and therefore it makes sense that there is this unified pattern which exists and which we can find that permeates every detail of the world. You can find everywhere. This pattern has many ramifications, enfoldings on itself, and details within details, which in fact are endless. However, for purposes of our discussion, let us trace only one aspect of one basic facet of this pattern. Again, as he said in his introduction, the purpose of this book is not to delve deeper and deeper and deeper into the mystical secrets, but rather to at least demonstrate and show how the parts that we can understand are going to help us make sense of all the different things that happen in our lives. I'm just going to ask everyone to mute. Thank you. Okay. So, put most fundamentally, this pattern has 3 elements. In the life issues which we will examine together in subsequent chapters, we will sometimes be focusing on the interaction between the first 2, sometimes the second 2, and sometimes all 3, but all of them will be found everywhere, okay? So essentially there are going to be 3 elements which will focus on sometimes 1 and 2, sometimes 2 and 3, sometimes all of them. One can't always speak out every detail, and you'll be left with the challenge of amplifying each subject to fully express the pattern in each. This exercise itself is a Torah learning experience and immensely rewarding, which means the application of this to the things that happen in our life is something that we're going to be discussing as we go along. And it's something that hopefully, you know, and he spoke about this a bit in the introduction, when you hear something which is so true that it's like reminds you of something you almost already know or should have known. And it's a pattern that you pick up and that you see in all sorts of places. So that's the kind of thing that we're aiming for from the pattern that he's going to describe. A description of these basic elements is necessarily difficult and vague. There are no words to pure essence. Mystical truths can only be talked around until one falls in, so to speak. When one suddenly grasps the essence, we're on top of page 18, it is seen to be incandescent with clarity and remarkably simple, but it must be grasped inwardly. It can never be entirely expressed, okay? So again, as we said last time, the difficulty of expressing something which is very, very deep is that there aren't words which will do it justice. There aren't sufficient number of words. And by the way, we have this in all areas of life. You know, if you ask someone to describe the emotions that they feel when their child does something that they're proud of, it's something which is very difficult to describe. And even something which is simpler than that, the elation of winning the football match, you know, or getting the medal in the cup final, or, you know, Mum, you might remember me scoring a goal, Wingate in Finchley Stadium. You know, the emotion that one feels, it's something which is hard to put into words and to describe, to do it justice in words. And therefore, similarly with some of the deeper concepts, what we're going to do is going to speak around it and hopefully describe a few different applications of it so that we can fully understand it. Put most simply, are we ready? The 3 elements are as follows. The first element is the point of beginning, the transition from nothing to something. Okay, that's our first element. It is variously expressed as the moment of creation, the male experience or pole of reality, the number 1, and the right hand, and is embodied in the person of Avraham Avinu. Very relevant to smile from God, because it's relevant to this week's parsha where we meet Avraham Avinu for the first time. Okay, meaning all of these different expressions are ways that Chazal, our sages, or the Zohar, the mystical writings, the way that they express essentially the point of beginning. All of those different expressions of it, as you can see, a lot of them are sort of parables, mashalim, etc. But what they're all trying to express is that this is the point where something from nothing, became something. It is the pristine flash of energy which begins any process. It is by definition indivisible, right? Hence it's called one. It's indivisible. It's just one. The Torah expresses this by referring to the first day of creation thus. And it was evening and it was morning, Yom Echad, day one. Vayerev vayevoker Yom Echad, which we read just a couple of weeks ago on Parshas Bereishis and Simchas Torah as well. It doesn't state the first day as a parallel to the subsequent, the second day or the third day, because in its pure being, at the root of creation, it is not first part of an unfolding process of differentiation. It is simply one, which means, although for the second day of creation, the term was Yom Sheni, Yom Shlishi, it's the second and it's the third day, each of them, and therefore it should say the first day, which would be Yom Rishon, the first day. It doesn't say that, but rather it says Yom Echad, which means day one, because one is not a relative term. And that newness, that flash of inspiration, that first, that beginning is never just a part of the whole. It's never just the first day of the second of the 7 days of creation, and then leading to the second, leading to the third, leading to the fourth. It is something which is brand new. It's something which is different, which is indivisible, and that's why it's not named the first day, but it's named day one. He continues, the second, which means the second element, is the process itself. So our first element is the flash of inspiration, the beginning. The second is the process itself, the condensing of creative energy into tangible form. It is the expansion of the flash of beginning into finite form, and it's expressed as the female dimension, or the number 2, or the left hand, and is embodied in Yitzchak Avinu. So that means that our second element is taking that flash of inspiration, which was all oneness, which was almost impossible to deal with, to work with, to make sense of, and then using that, taking and making something tangible and finite from it. It's the work of taking that flash of energy and building from it. He continues, these two energies are paradoxical and antithetical. The first is related to infinity, the second, finite. The first is indivisible oneness, and the second is all fragmentation, meaning taking that oneness and now making it to finite parts. No two concepts could possibly be more opposite and more mutually exclusive. So you've got your first, your beginning, your indivisible, not understandable, sort of infinite energy, and then you've got your second, which is finite, breaking it down, processing it, building something from it. These are two entirely different elements. And that leads to the mystery of the third. The third element, it is the resolution of this cosmic tension. The third element is the harmony of opposites, which means taking that first and second element and bringing them together. But its mystery and magic are that at a deeper level, it reveals that in fact there never was a conflict. Both the first and second dimensions are melted into a new reality. A reality on page 19, which somehow unifies them and yet allows each to be fully expressed in its own right. Of the three, this is perhaps the most difficult to express in words. It can only be experienced. It is, however, alluded to as harmony or balance or the return to source or truth, true marriage, or the number 3 or the center of the body, and is the energy of Yaakov Avinu, of Jacob, in the world. Okay, so essentially our 3 elements. There are lots of different 3s in Yiddishkeit, but these are the 3 elements which kind of underpin everything else. Where number 1 is the flash of inspiration. Number 2 is taking that and making it into a tangible form, and number 3 is the combination of those 2 elements to create a third element that contains both of them, unifies them, and contains both of them at the same time. Just to put it into kind of just literally to try and bring it as down to earth as possible, and I'm not saying this is a good example necessarily, but it hopefully helps, is, when you've got the Lego box, you know what I mean? If you're sitting in front of the Lego, I happen to be a big fan of Lego. I don't get much time to build Lego anymore, but sometimes with my kids. You've got the Lego box in front of you. It's the world of infinite possibilities. That box you could build anything you like, and your mind is, the inspiration comes, and you're there in the world of infinite Lego building, and how incredible this is going to be, and everything else is irrelevant. How long it's going to take, and whether it's possible, whether it's practical, if it's going to look good, whether you got all the pieces, none of that makes a difference. That's your infinite. That's your first step. Your second step is when you try and bring that down into something tangible. Because your second step is like, okay, hang on a minute, right? I've got a certain amount of time. Oh, I can't find the pieces, and I don't actually have all the pieces that I need to do that. And I wish I wouldn't have lost all the pieces that we bought from the new model, because if I would have kept them together, I could have rebuilt that, etc., etc. So therefore, your second step is then taking that infinite world of possibility, that flash of inspiration, and trying to build something tangible, which is really completely the opposite of the first step. And then our third step, going through this analogy, our third step would be the completion of the model itself, which is somehow a unification of my first initial flash of inspiration and then my model. It doesn't entirely work, because that third step isn't, you'll see sort of better examples of this as we go along, but hopefully that helps you get a little bit of a picture of how that process works. Let's continue on page 19, the second paragraph. As explained previously, the purpose of this discussion is not to trace the roots and branches of these ideas, but to understand their application in the world of human experience. In terms of emotions, the first element is essentially pleasurable. It contains the thrill of new creation, the revelation of something previously hidden. Those of you who are similar to me, I always enjoy doing something new. I enjoy doing something new just because of that. Yeah, that emotion, the thrill of starting something new. It's a new program, it's a new event, whatever it is. Those are the type of things, where you'll get a certain thrill, a certain emotion. Okay, and that's pleasurable. The second element necessarily involves work and pain. It contains the pain of infinite potential shrinking to finite proportions, the sacrifice of all the creative energy, which could not be crystallized into limited space and time, the pain of separation from a pure origin. So that's the point at which your incredible idea for an event needs to be brought down to earth. And then you need to say to yourself, do I have the capacity to do this? Do I have the resources? How am I going to make this work? Will other people be interested in it, or is it just me? All of those type of things. This is your second stage process, where you have to go through what is sometimes a bit painful and not as easy as the first the first step. The third is true, mature human joy. It's the happiness of the resolution of doubts, the depth of emotion felt upon understanding why what seemed cruelty was in fact kindness, i.e. that second step, which seemed cruel, painful, etc., was in fact kindness. It is the joy of well-earned reward. The natural mode of the first phase is ecstasy, of the second pain, and of the third transcendence, which means that joy in our example of the event would be the after party, where you're sitting back after the event and it's been a success, and you can say it truly was all worthwhile. All of the pain of bringing that flash of inspiration to fruition was worthwhile. And that's joy. That's what he calls transcendence. And you can see the difference, therefore, between the joy and the pleasure of the first step, which he calls ecstasy, and the joy of the third, which is a completely different type of joy. It's the earned. It's something which you've really earned. It's the transcendence, as it were. An examination of one application of this system will help to make it tangible. In describing these things, the mystical sources talk about the body. Of course, they're referring to a higher reality, but since the physical is an exactly accurate projection of the spiritual, we can work with the physical and understand the spiritual. Okay, so again, we're using the physical as a mashal, as a parable, just to be clear, of the spiritual dimension. If we consider male and female, physically, biologically, we see illustrated all that we have alluded to thus far. The development of a human being, perhaps the ultimate process in the world, requires father and mother. The male contribution is infinitesimally small in space and time. It consists of the contribution of a genetic code and no more. It involves no work and no pain. It is simply the flash of beginning. The female dimension, however, is opposite. It involves an expansion in space and time. The child is formed physically within the mother over considerable time. Effort and pain are involved. The tiny gift of a code of genes is crystallized into tangible form within her body. And finally, a child is born. Both father and mother have melted into one in this child, each unique component now blended into a third, a new human being who transcends from one generation to another. So maybe that is the example of all examples and the ultimate sort of parable for this, which is the relationship between husband and wife, between male and female, and the unity and harmony that comes together with an entirely different contribution from male, entirely different contribution from female, and then it being blended into that third step, which is the child, which is a brand new entity, a brand new form, which has been made from that combination of the first two steps. This model of man and woman and their interaction at all levels, biologically, emotionally, and spiritually, should be kept in mind as the central illustration of the pattern we are studying. This pattern is the root, all else is application. It's interesting, because literally just today I was teaching in school in Chumash about Adam and Chava. We do Sefer Bereshis with the 13s, and it describes the way Zachar and Nekeva bara usam, male and female, they were created. And Rashi says that originally Adam is composed of male and female, and later on it's separate and it becomes two separate beings, which is male and female. And one of the girls puts up her hand and she says, well, I don't understand. Like, if it's going to be two separate beings, there's going to be a man and there's going to be a woman, then why is Adam created composed of the male and female in one entity? Why wasn't he just created separately? There should be male created separately and female created separately. And it's a great question, right? Simple but great question. And the Ramban says, because essentially the Zachar and the Nekeva, the male and female, are one. That is what they are in their essence. And the fact that they were created as one, the Ramban explains, means that the neshama of the male and the neshama of the female essentially are supposed to be one, and they were one originally. And therefore, marriage, or as we see a relationship between the male and female, is essentially bringing it back to that oneness that it was originally. That's step one, and step two, coming back to the unification, which is step three. Perhaps something that we can think about in our lives, therefore, is when we have different things in our lives. I think there are probably more times when we're very excited about something, and maybe I speak for myself, could be that people, other people are different. When we're excited about something, we have a stage one. How many times are we able to follow it through to a stage two? How many times are we able, willing, prepared to put in the time and the effort that it means to actually bring it into fruition, to bring it into that finite form? And if we don't do that, maybe we're actually missing out on that third step. That is the end of chapter 1, concludes for tonight. If someone is able to share the Tehillim, that'd be great, because as I said, I'm not at my computer. If anyone's able to share the Tehillim, then that'd be great. And just to reiterate that our series has been sponsored in memory of Avram ben Yonah Yaakov, and also Almog ben Yigal. Anyone able to share the Tehillim? Or if not, then I will, I'll say them together with the Yehiratzim. Okay, Kuf Chaf Aleph 121. Shela Malos Esaina El Hehori Me'ain Yogo Ezri Ezri Mima Adonai Yosef Shamayim V'Aretz Ali Teina Meit Raglech Al Yonon Shem Yirecha Nilo Yonon V'Leishon Shem Yisrael Adonai Shem Yirecha Adonai Tzil Chol Yad Yiminecha Yoyim Mama Shemesh Layakek Av Yoreach V'Alayla Adonai Yishmarecha Mikol Roi Yishmar Estav Shech Adonai Yishmar Etzeis Chavoyecha Me'ato Ve'ad Olam. Kuf Lamed 130. Shira Malos Mimamakim Perosicha Adonai Adonai Simar V'Koli Tienos Lechakatvet V'Kol Tachal Adonai Mavonis V'Shmoria Adonai Miyama Yigim Chasli Kolamanti Vorei Yisi Adonai Givison Afsi V'Nidvoroi Kol Tinafil Adonai Mishayim Laboike Daimim Laboike Chen Yisrael Adonai Yim Adonai Achet Rabbe Moifadot Yisnes Yisroel Mikol Avonis Sal Mitmerach V'Sina V'Yisrael Misham V'Shlam Mikol V'Rach V'Zachilim Follow Shem Ben Chaim Bevelen Gilem Chamas Chani Yudei Begnesti Chanem Ben Yudis Vashavas Arachal Asesiniel Graham of Rumen Dever Shem Ben Amalis for Memirim Chaim Zive Malket Mordechai Ben Sor Vegas Lesh Yaakov Shalom Shana Penina Sarvas in the Lech Chaim Ben Ari Ben Rachel Sagi the Baschel Simchat Pech Ben Sar Mashvez and Yasi Isma Yaakov Ben Rezekar Nachman Shlomo Ben Yivat Achim Titzach Anarach Hasvat Sivia Shlomo Ben Yamin Shana Pesach Shem Ben Chav Mat Ben Dreli Baspel Dever Dam Ben Thomas Avas Agnes Chaim Bas Mash Shalom Yisrael Ben Rachel Stephen Cohen to Vivas Esther Chana Chana Bas Rezu with Simile Basari at Gori Chaim Ben Chana Yudis Shimon Ben Chana Simon Bas Bashan Levi Sar Bas Kal Malka Bas Niti Yosef Shalom Ben Risha Schlepsel zu min Ziparis or Belabas Lejal Simcha Mengilesi into Lebasar Khana Lebasar Zipa. Nikel David Ben Mash Mechabin Ari or Daniel Mordechai Ben Dever Ben Yamin Ben Gabriel Shona Das was Khana Malcolm Shon Bas Aviudina Chaim Ben Avraham Rabbi Moshe Eli Melech Baruch sister Ruben Yaakov Ben Fredel Elchan Baruch Ben Tzion Dever Peshka Bas Rivka Estabas Kitrez Baruch Shon Bison Babu Mischaz Kodesh Baruch Imani Rachim Aleim Lachim Rabbi Zul Chasim Lachim Yosef Yishlach Laim Meir Ruful Shleim Ben Ashmai Rufus Nefesh Rufus Akuf Ashtabar God of his man Korev Noimar Amen.
Thank you very much. Good Shabbos.
Pleasure. Wishing everyone a wonderful Shabbos.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
Shabbos. Thank
so
you.
much.
everyone.
Shabbos.
Have a great Shabbos.
Thank you,
to
Rabbi.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you very much, Fred. Thank you.
Thanks.
Pleasure, Grant.
Yeah.
Take care. Colin, good to have you on the call. All the best.
Shalom.
Good to see you. Take care. Keep well.
You too. You too.
And
Love
Mike,
to all the
look after
family.
yourself. Thank you. Mike, look after yourself in Israel.
You too.
Good to have you with us. Take care. See you, everyone.
Bye, shalom.
Bye.